How to get past festival security without any dramas. And this information is straight from the horse's mouth. I interviewed festival security themselves. Music festivals, at least the ones in the UK, are actually the hardest place, in my opinion, to get small amounts of drugs in, apart from prisons. Because it's not like airports where the people searching there are looking for huge bundles of cash, bombs, or even suitcases full of drugs. They're not actually looking out for small amounts of drugs. If they spent all the time catching someone with a couple of spliffs and someone got through with a bomb, I think everyone would be pretty pissed off. At festivals, they're actively looking for people with small amounts of drugs, so that makes it much more tricky. But if people did want to take small amounts of drugs in, there is one saving grace for them, and that's that when you think about all the sort of small places that you could stash a small amount of drugs, well, for the security to search everyone to that extent to find it would actually take longer than the festival itself. I mean, they can't strip everyone naked and line them up against the festival fence, tens of thousands of people, because, these people aren't in prison. In prison they could do that, they'd probably have a higher success rate. So all they can do really is single people out, sometimes using questionable sort of sniffer dogs, which we'll get onto later, to justify their selection. And then they search those individuals intensely. Of course, it all depends on the festival itself. Some of them are much more relaxed, some of them are much more strict. Sometimes they have licensing conditions demanding them to be strict, if perhaps they've had problems at the festival in the past. So if you want to know whether they can pat you down, they can. If you want to know whether they can strip search you, they can't, then this video is for you. Feel free to like and subscribe this video. I'm trying to get this channel off the ground. For this, I interviewed 2 festival security guards and a festival steward who had worked on the front gate. They'd all worked at major British festivals. And I told them that we want to get into the festival without any drama. How do we do that? And the number 1 tip they gave us was do not draw attention to yourself on the way in. Getting into a big festival goes something like this. You get your ticket or your ID if you look young checked, and your bags are initially searched for contraband that is not drugs, such as glass bottles, weapons, or pyrotechnics. Then, if it's one of the festivals that has sniffer dogs, you will walk past a sniffer dog. Sometimes they use the furniture like ped gates and stuff to funnel people down into a smaller place, so people have to walk the gauntlet of the sniffer dog in groups of 1 or 2. If you don't want any trouble at the gate, you need to not act bait. It goes without saying at this point in the sesh, there's no space for jaws that are sort of swinging around like a helicopter's propeller. There's plenty of time for that later on. First, you need to get in safe and sound. People get cocky, a steward who's worked on the gates told me. I saw one guy walk up to security to go through the gates smoking a joint. I can't remember if he got in. Tip number 2, split your group up into smaller groups. Go in groups of 2. This is always best in nightclubs too. Big groups of people are always going to get more scrutiny on them. If you're in a massive group, don't all go in together. A security guard who's worked at festivals for years told me. If you're in a large group of friends and you're being loud, you're going to draw attention, which is not good for you, he said. When entering the festival, go in with 2 or 3 mates only, not as a large group. Never have one person in the group taking everyone's drugs in. This is just a simple way of making sure that someone doesn't get in a fucking load of shit. Obviously, if you get caught with multiple people's stashes, you're legally classed as a dealer and you could get in a whole load of shit. I found many examples of this, just to give you one. In 2019, this 23-year-old guy agreed to take his friend's drugs into Boomtown Festival. He said that he was getting free party prescriptions himself in exchange for doing it, but he got busted on the gate. All the drugs were in a Pringles tube. The following year, he appeared in the Winchester Crown Court, where he received a 2-year suspended prison sentence and was ordered to complete 250 hours of unpaid work and slapped with a 4-month curfew. The next tip is be aware of how the sniffer dogs operate. After the weapons search, if it's a festival that has sniffer dogs, you'll be invited to put any drugs that you have into a yellow amnesty box without consequences. The amnesty box is there to give people a chance to surrender their drugs, but the whole time they're going to be saying, if you've got any drugs, give them now or you will get caught. But in reality, there's a really actually low chance of you getting caught, but this is a lot of intimidation tactics that start from this point onwards. Then it's likely that you'll walk past a sniffer dog. If you go at peak time when human traffic is high, you're less likely to walk right past the dog. The funny thing about these sniffer dogs is that they're very, very ineffective. In fact, they often don't work at all. And that's not to be confused with police sniffer dogs or army sniffer dogs. They are really good and they are really well trained. But this isn't. If you do a sort of short course with your dog, you can become a private security sniffer dog. There isn't very big barriers to entry at all. One study looked at 10,000 searches which the dog had indicated the presence of drugs. They were wrong. The dogs were wrong a whopping 75% of the time. Another study which collected data at Latitude Festival found the dogs were wrong 88% of the time. So what happens if the dog handler alleges that the dog indicated that you have drugs on you? Well, you'll probably say, I haven't. And then the theatrics begin.
I need you to tell me what you've got on you.
Well, if you hand over what you've got, we'll let you in. If we don't find it, you're not coming in. This back and forth is designed to intimidate you into handing over any illicit pills or powders that you might or might not have on you. But given how inaccurate these dogs are, often this baffles non-drug users who find themselves caught in this situation. It's useful to point out that it's all consensual at this point, so if you don't consent, the private security guard cannot search you. However, it is a condition of entry that you sort of submit to this consent, so you submit to being searched. Otherwise, they have the right to not allow you on the site. It's what's known as coercive consent. You must give consent or, this bad thing will happen. I'll let you make up your own decision on the ethics of that sort of thing.
Don't push the dog away, especially when the dog's going to tell me that you've got something on you shouldn't have. Okay, passive indication drug dog. Okay, dog's telling me you're in possession of something that you shouldn't have. Okay?
No, I'm not, no.
Okay, we're going to take you for a full search. If they find anything and you've now told me that you haven't got anything...
A full search?
Full search.
What does that mean?
A complete search.
What, me naked?
Well, pretty much, yeah. Alright?
I don't really comfortable getting naked now.
Now, it can get really serious, and that's if the security are so convinced that you're carrying a large amount of narcotics that they hand you over to the police. Because with the police, it's no longer by consent. They can detain you under the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971, and they can perform a strip search. This doesn't happen often, but it's a bigger risk at festivals where police erect a pop-up station on site. Another security guard explained to me how this works. If the dog detects anything you may or may not have on you, you will be asked to go to a different tent, he said. In that tent, there will be 2 security guards. They'll ask you to take off your overlayers, jackets, coats, jumpers, check your bags, and they'll do a pat down. If nothing is found, another dog could come in to check. If it goes to your personal area, like the genitals, you might be asked one more time if you have anything on you. At that point, the police could be brought in to do a full body search. So another tip that the security guards gave me was once you're inside the festival and the drama's over, you're pretty much safe, but still be a bit discreet. Just because you're in a festival doesn't mean the drug laws aren't relevant anymore. There's still a war on drugs. When you're inside the festival, it's easy to look around, clock that every third person in the vicinity looks like they're chewing a wasp, and think that it's a free-for-all drug fest. But still be careful. A baggie brimming with white powder is, after all, just as illegal on the festival site as a baggie brimming with white powder anywhere else. Having said that, the security told me that they pick their battles. They have to. If they spend all their time taking spliffs off people, they'll probably miss the person flogging hundreds of pills. Generally speaking, the security want these guys, not you. On day 1, the security are told to be hard on drugs and drug takers. We take people to the eviction tent and detain them until they're kicked out or given a warning, a security guard told me. But by day 2, we have had so many people brought in that we're told to just use our heads. If they look like just a drug taker and not a dealer, we'll take the drugs, place them in an evidence bag and give them to the supervisor of the section. So still exercise some discretion. Don't openly use drugs in the paths connecting the stages, for instance. There's more likely to be security about. Keep all the drug-related activities on the down low, like in the campsite or the middle of the dense thicket of limbs in front of a big stage. I was also told, most importantly in fact, to just pass the vibe check. Some security guards have an attitude problem, sure.
You're not going to Boomtown.
But most are actually alright. If you're nice to them, they're very likely to be nice to you. If you get pulled for a secondary search on the way in, you have about 30 seconds to build a rapport. You want to present as a chilled out person who would be no issue once inside the party. Make them think you're sound, and they probably won't want to ruin your day. I once spoke to a security guard who was timing the searches on the way in, so I asked him, what's the average time for the search? He said, a good search is 20 seconds. But some of them going as low as 7 seconds and some of them are going up to 30 seconds. So you just have to sustain 30 seconds. Make sure when you're entering the search tables that you have your bags ready for a search and always say hello to the security searching you. One of the security guards explained to me how this works. If you start with a polite hi or good morning, it starts a good conversation. If you start with fucking security, I've nothing on me, okay? It's already put you on the back foot. On the way in, why not give the security guard's ego a little tickle and you'll be inside getting your eardrums ravished by techno in no time. What happens if you're inside the festival and the security guard wants to search your tent? This is very rare and only in sort of extreme circumstances. Usually once people are in the festival, they just sort of melt into the crowd and have fun and don't really have any more contact with the security at all. These events are huge. And unless something went wrong, you wouldn't really expect to be coming into contact with the security. But I got some interesting information about how that sort of thing works. According to one of the security guards I interviewed, at all the major festivals in the UK, you tend to have multiple security companies at the festival. One will be looking after the external areas of the festival, looking for fence jumpers or large groups walking through fields. Another one will be covering the gates and fire exits, and one might be covering the campsites and evictions. There'll also be internal security guards patrolling stages and bars. I also thought it'd be interesting to ask what happens if the security guards themselves are caught doing something wrong. Security are dealt with by security and the main company, he said. If they are caught doing something they shouldn't be doing, then they will be evicted by their own main company that brought them in. The security compound can be searched by dogs or people, but 9 times out of 10, the word spreads about the search before it happens. The first 2 days is when it's more common to be evicting security members of staff. By the 3rd day, the word has spread and security start to behave because they know they could be kicked out themselves. You have to remember that some of these kids are aged 18 to 20 and have just got their SIA badge. They might never have worked at a festival. Maybe it's their first job. Loud music and girls that are half naked or guys with their tops off, they forget that they are on shift and they are doing a job. Some might think they have the power to do as they please or join in with the fun party. Some have even taken their high vis off and gone AWOL. They are usually found by a supervisor that has placed them in the position. If 2 lads want to search your tent and they say you will be detained or kicked out if you do not allow this to happen, pull out your phone and record them doing it. Get their bib number and their faces. Once the search has happened, take the recording to a checkpoint or a volunteer station and tell them that 2 security guards have just been through your tent and you have video footage and you want a security supervisor to see if you want to complain. This will go to the main security company and those 2 lads will be escorted off-site. And I also got told about fake security guards. I was told, quote, remember that not all people with high vis are security. Some are volunteers and some are production or stage crew. Plus, some festival goers bring high vis to make out like they are security. Security will always have 2 or 3 things on them that helps you know that they are real. A high vis with the logo or name of the company and the number on the front and back. A radio and a map or a handbook. All security should have gloves and evidence bags on them, so if they don't have them, they might not be real members of staff.